Good morning, everyone. This is Sherry Greenhouse, Managing Partner of Serum Exchange, and I'd like to welcome you to our first session today of the Virtual Contact Center Conference, Best Practices in Workforce Management and Performance Optimization. This is a great session we have for you, how to accelerate success with real-time performance management, presented by VPI and Saddletree Research. As a reminder, all of these sessions are recorded, and if you've attended any of the sessions before, you know you can find the recording and a PDF of the slides on ecrmevents.com. You need to log in, and once you're logged in, click the Agenda tab, page down, and right next to the name of the webcast, you'll find the PDF, and about 24 hours after the live event, you'll find the recording. Please feel free, pass this recording on. If you have associates within your organization that could not make the live session, be sure to send that link to them. And after the live event, a survey will pop up. Let us know what you thought about this webcast, and you will be left onto the conference platform. Make sure to go into that exhibit hall. VPI has a booth. They're giving away an Amazon Kindle HD, so you don't want to miss out on the drawing for that. And there's also some great white papers, case studies, all sorts of information they have on their booth. So you want to make sure to go ahead and go to their booth. Now I'd like to introduce your presenters for today. Paul Stockford is founder and chief analyst at Saddletree Research. Saddletree provides focused communications industry research, including analysis of market trends, issues, technologies, and companies in the contact center industry, with special emphasis on emerging technologies and developing markets. An industry analyst for the past 21 years, Paul has also done telecommunications research, analysis at Connors Instack Group, Vanguard Communications, and DataQuest. In addition, he currently serves as research director for the nonprofit National Association of Call Centers, which is NACC, at the University of Southern Mississippi. I'm also very happy to introduce Patrick Botts of VPI. Patrick serves as Vice President of Workforce Optimization for VPI, the leading provider of contact center performance management, quality monitoring, and workforce optimization solutions. Leveraging more than a decade of field experience as a contact center practitioner, Patrick works closely with customers to capture, analyze, and improve their mission-critical customer interactions. He has a bachelor's in engineering from Arizona State, an MBA from Pepperdine, and then moved right by freezing cold Boston. And I'd just like to introduce VPI so you know who they are. They're an established company with a rich 15-year history of providing exceptional service and solutions to over 1,500 customers, including some household names like 1-800-Flowers, AAA, Assurant, AT&T, Banner Health, Sony, Walmart, and VPI has several offices throughout North America and multiple sales and support throughout the world. Just a brief overview of what we are going to talk about today. The agenda, Paul is going to discuss the value of real-time performance management. He'll then review the results of his recent benchmark research on the subject. He'll talk about today's most important contact center issues to measure and act upon in real time, and the highest value metrics to share in with your frontline employees in real time. Then Patrick is going to reveal a roadmap for developing and implementing an effective real-time performance management strategy. He's also going to share 2 case studies on how leading organizations are using performance management solutions to significantly increase their bottom line results. So it is now my pleasure to turn this event over to Paul.
Thanks, Sherry, and good morning to everybody. We'll talk a little bit, first of all, about the research itself. the research was conducted to determine a market potential for real-time performance management. So I think it's important, first of all, to keep in mind that performance management is a well-known industry solution. It's not something that we have to spend a lot of time explaining to survey participants. So the results tend to be have a greater degree of validity because there's not a great deal of misunderstanding. I'll give you an example of one that we've had problems with in the past when we do research on unified communication. Some people think it's unified messaging. Some people think it's, unified texting, whatever. But so just to give you an idea, performance management is about as straightforward a study as we've done in the past. What you're looking at here is an illustration of the survey participants by title and by the size of their contact center. And as you can see, the size of the contact center is relatively representative of the industry in that the majority of these contact centers have 150 or fewer seats, which is, of course, typical of the industry itself. And if you look at the titles of the industry participants, they tended to, our respondents tended to skew toward decision makers. And about 59% of respondents were either reported that their title is director or some level of executive vice president, owner, that sort of thing. So we wanted to further qualify and find out what these respondents were using for reporting. We found that 39% of the respondents in the survey don't currently use performance management for their reporting requirements. So in order to better understand their perspective on things, we asked what they typically use for reporting in their contact center. And you can see by these results in this chart, what it's telling us is that contact center today typically rely on a wide variety of solutions in order to measure and manage the customer experience. This also means that these managers have to sift through a lot of data, vast quantities of data from various silos of information, and then export these canned reports into spreadsheets and so on. So what we're looking at, some of these respondents look at performance management reporting as a fairly tedious process. We also asked our respondents, including those currently using performance management, this is 100% of our respondents, about their level of satisfaction in the time that that's required to share performance metrics and key performance indicators with agents and managers. So think about how you might do it yourself. You get the data, it turns into a report, and then somewhere down the line, this report is, this data is reported to agents, managers, and those that can take action. As you can see on this chart, there's general dissatisfaction in the time it takes to get performance results to those who could take appropriate action in order to improve performance. So clearly there's room for improvement here, but we want it to be absolutely sure, so we dug a little deeper, and we asked a fairly simple question: is there value in sharing performance metrics in real time with frontline agents, as compared to our previous question, which asked about current methods of using performance management? We said, do you think there would be any value or any benefit in being able to report these metrics in real time? And overwhelmingly, you can see the respondents felt that there was. About 93%. That's an overwhelming positive response. That indicates a general industry understanding of the fact that in today's competitive economic environment, it's necessary to have solid, consistent insights into contact center performance. Despite the value found in standard performance management data, as it is typically delivered today, if it's delivered to management after the termination of a customer contact, it doesn't usually alter the outcome of that customer communication. So with that in mind, we asked our respondents which metrics do you think would be of greatest value to share in real time with frontline agents? So remember, we got 93% said yes, we think that there would be real value in doing this in real time. So we asked what metrics, and as you can see, the responses tend to skew toward the metrics that focus on customer satisfaction rather than agent performance as the primary objective. This is kind of interesting, and it's also indicative of a general industry trend away from the more standard performance metrics that the industry tends to rely on. Real-time performance management delivers the information that's necessary to make decisions when those decisions or those decision outcomes can positively impact customer satisfaction. Besides asking about metrics, we also asked respondents if there were specific events that would benefit from being able to take action in real time. By the way, respondents were asked to cite up to 3 events, so these totals are going to add up to way more than 100%. Once again, as you can see on the graph, customer satisfaction is king. I think it's interesting if you take a look at these issues and metrics and so on. First call resolution ranked higher than sales success. Again, it's indicative of the direction that the industry is headed, more toward the customer measuring success of the customer experience than measuring more traditional metrics like further down the scale, schedule adherence, and so on. I wanted to close my comments with a validation of the importance of performance management in the contact center. These results come from our annual survey. We have our 2013 survey currently in progress. We'll run that through the end of the year. But each year since 2008, when I began working with the NACC, we conduct a fairly extensive survey among end users, not just members of the NACC. We invite any and all of you to participate, and I know you're inundated every day with invitations to participate in surveys and so on. But we are a little bit different. The NACC, as Sherry mentioned, we're a not-for-profit. We have a different profit motive, and all these results are reported back through the course of the year in our newsletter, which goes out on the first Friday of every month. You can find out more data about the National Association of Call Centers by going to the website, nationalcallcenters.org, and signing up for the newsletter and also finding out about being a member with us. But every year we ask which technology solutions are, or we ask respondents to rate technology solutions in one of 5 ways, and those are we already have it, but we're going to replace it, we are going to evaluate it for purchase in the next year, we've already funded it for purchase in the next year, or we have no interest in this whatsoever. And consistently, over the past 4 years, performance management shows up in the top 5, which is fairly significant since we look at about nearly 24 technology solutions. So it's clear that the industry understands the value of performance management. If you look at this 21.1%, if you transfer that or translate that into real numbers, what we're looking at is about 14,000 contact centers that will be that have or will be evaluating performance management in 2012. We expect that number to be the same or rise in 2013 because one of the reasons we expect that is we asked the respondents in this survey about their plans to implement a real-time performance management solution. Keeping in mind we specified real-time performance management. We found that 9% plan to implement real-time performance management in the next year, and again in real terms that translates to about 6,000 contact centers in the U.S. only. An additional 21% said they will evaluate real-time performance management for acquisition within the next 24 months. So doing a simple trend line, we are confidently forecasting over 50% of the market will be real-time performance management in the next 3 years. So clearly this is not a flash in the pan. This is something, a trend that certainly has legs. A lot of these numbers, if you didn't get them all as I was talking to, they're available in a paper that I wrote based on the results of this survey that is available for download, and Patrick will provide you with a link for that at the end of the presentation. So make sure you stick around and have pencil and paper ready to get the, if necessary, to get the link to download that paper, and you can get all this detail. You can get a great deal more detail than what I just covered. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Patrick to talk a little bit more about some real-life applications of real-time performance management. Patrick?
Great. Thank you so much, Paul, and thanks, Sherry, for the introduction. I think the research there is extremely insightful. I want to just clarify one thing on one of the slides 7, that 93% of attendees did see value in sharing metrics in real time with agents. So I know there's a couple questions that came in about that. We appreciate that. At this point, I'm going to discuss or give you a roadmap for effectively implementing a real-time performance management strategy. And what I do at VPI is work closely with our customers to do so. So we've implemented close to 100 real-time performance management implementations, and I just want to share some of those best practices with you on what's really worked to deliver kind of the fastest return on those implementations, and then also share some of those case studies with you. So first, I'd like to kind of introduce you to a framework that we find works really well. And those of you that are familiar with Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma, the framework that we use is based on this, where it's define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So some of you may be Six Sigma houses. If not, this framework tends to work really well. Where first you need to essentially define your goals and KPIs by line of business. Then determine the data sources and implement the technology to collect and present those metrics and KPIs. Then you want to analyze that data to identify and confirm root causes. And as you improve, you're going to develop an action plan for each KPI if it falls outside of targets. And then control, which is essentially you're going to create some standardized processes around monitoring the results. And then you kind of go through this cycle again. And so I'll take you through kind of each of these areas within this framework. But what's nice about this is you can always come back to this. If you find yourself kind of getting off target, just come back to this framework and see where you're at and what you need to do, and it'll get you back on course. So in the define stage, and this ties in really nicely with some of the research that Paul and his team conducted around what are the most important issues to measure in real time. Some of the top challenges and goals that organizations have today are around reducing customer churn, decreasing the cost per transaction, increased first contact resolution, improving sales or collections performance. We're seeing a lot of contact centers that were typically in a sales environment now asking their agents to upsell or cross-sell products and services because it is much easier than going out and getting new customers. And then compliance is always becoming kind of an increasing, there's always new regulations coming out, whether it be PCI compliance around credit card information or HIPAA compliance around patient private information, or now Dodd-Frank in the financial services area. Those are becoming goals and objectives that a lot of organizations are trying to meet. So once you define what your key goals are by line of business, then it's important to create a balanced scorecard. And what a balanced scorecard does, it gives you kind of a speedometer or odometer of how you're doing on the metrics that matter most. So once you kind of defined your lines of business, which most of you have, right? So you have different customer segments that you serve for different lines of business, different products and services. You want to develop a balanced scorecard for each of those. And some of you may be doing this already. Oftentimes, as Paul mentioned, people are doing this. They're doing it in Excel, and it's a very manual process. but either way, you're still kind of already going towards a performance management strategy where you're weighting your metrics accordingly as to what's most important to achieve your goals. So here's an example where the cost per call is weighted the most in this organization for this line of business. Customer satisfaction is rated heavily. First call resolution, as many of you know, is probably the number one most highly correlated metric to customer satisfaction. It's typically a one-to-one correlation. So if you can improve first call resolution by 1%, you can typically at least improve your CSAT by 1%. So this organization, they weight that pretty heavily. Agent utilization, quality scores, turnover, and ASA and abandonment rate here. So what you do is you get a nice kind of number at that 52.6% that you can monitor as a director or an executive of the customer-facing operations to really see how you're doing over time. It gives you kind of a nice overall view. So once and as you're developing these scorecards or your metrics, one thing that's really important, and this is something that we see quite a bit when we work with our customers, is that typically when we first go in, their metrics are not necessarily consistent definitely not across industries. So a lot of it, while benchmarking is important, when you get down to benchmarking metrics, it's very important to understand how different organizations within your industry are actually measuring metrics. So here's a quote that basically says that ICMI found that various metrics in no cases were the most popular definition guarded even 50% of the total responses. So across organizations, across industries, first contact resolution is a great example. It's measured so differently across different organizations. Some people do it through post-call surveys. Some do quality monitoring. Many are now starting to use data analytics or performance management to actually measure first call resolution in a more automated fashion. Some are still using agent tick sheets, right, where the agent, might say whether, they resolve the issue or not. So there's a lot of different ways. You have to be very careful benchmarking metrics and even just basic things like service levels and some of the more commonly used metrics are the systems that we use today. So whether it be your ACD, your dialer, they even measure metrics differently. And so oftentimes you see even across sites that have different platforms, a lot of companies are merging or acquiring other companies and they have different platforms. We're seeing that a lot of even their internal metrics are not measured the same way. So it's very important to ensure that your calculations make sense for what you're trying to achieve with your goals and objectives. Here's an example of a KPI. So oftentimes we hear metrics and KPIs and we kind of think of them many times as interchangeable. Typically what a KPI is something that really needs to be measured, right? So, and it often consists of multiple metrics. So this is a common KPI that's used by many of our clients called agent productivity. You may have some other sort of productivity KPI, but clients measure this differently. In this case, you have kind of the tier 3 metrics, which are the raw metrics that get spit out by typically the ACD or the workforce management system. And a lot of times we just tend to rely on tier 3 metrics because those are the metrics that are most easily available and easy to report on, right? So we have kind of Paul mentioned, the siloed reporting. We have, reporting that lives in the ACD, the dialer, workforce management, quality management, all these different systems. And we kind of take the raw data and work with that and do a lot of kind of consolidating that data or trying to consolidate in Excel. With performance management solutions, what's nice is it allows you to kind of automatically calculate these and create your own definitions, if you will. So in this case, those tier 3 metrics roll up into tier 2 metrics, and then you can have an adjusted calls per hour KPI that really matches what you're trying to achieve within your organization. So what are the agent level KPIs that drive results? So we talked about director level, manager level, balanced scorecards, and this is a question I get almost weekly: is what metrics should we show our agents in real time, right? Because agents, they love the immediate feedback. They love to get kind of know where they're at all times. They love to self-manage. But if you don't put the right metrics in front of them, they will quickly go to, they'll do basically what you want them to do, right? So they will go essentially in the direction that you're not looking them to go to. But if you put the right metrics in front, you can very quickly see results. And we're talking weeks, 1 week, 2 weeks. I mean, it's a huge improvement with companies putting the right metrics in front of their agents in real time. And these are just some of the ones that we recommend. This is based on what's worked for our customers in various different roles. So customer service, I put some here. Not everything needs to be shared with agents in real time, right? So some of the key ones in a customer service environment, productivity time, percentage of calls transferred, average hold time. If you measure it's being issued, that's typically a good one to put in real time. Anything that they can actually, in real time, make adjustments themselves. If they can't really do much about it, then it doesn't necessarily need to be given to them in real time. And I have quite a bit here, but we recommend anywhere between 3 to 5, sometimes 8 real-time metrics be placed in front of agents, because if you put too much more than that, then it just becomes overwhelming. I think as managers, we've all experienced that, right? We have so many metrics. A lot of metrics we measure just because we can measure doesn't mean we should measure. So if you can narrow it down to the 3 to 5 key metrics that, adherence is a great one, to show agents what they should be doing in real time versus what they are doing. And then also give them views into some of the other metrics that are important, but maybe on a daily, weekly, monthly view, that would be enough to kind of get them to really understand where they are and self-manage, but they don't have to be seeing that all the time. So, this is the presentation is available for download on ecrmevents.com. So this is a good one to kind of just print out if you're looking to implement a real-time performance management solution and kind of evaluate these metrics. Do they make sense for your environment? So once you've defined the metrics that are most important, that you want to present in real time, typically various solutions present them in somewhat similar ways. So typically there's a ticker. Tickers are usually always on, and they're pretty customizable. So you can just drag and drop the agents that the metrics that you'd like to show to your agent. Again, I have a lot of metrics here just for demonstration purposes. Typically, there wouldn't be this many metrics, but what it does is kind of show the agent in real time how they're doing versus their goal and or versus their target. So some customers prefer to show, their goal, and then target is great because it kind of gives you context of, even if I'm beating my goal, am I doing better, performing better than the other agents or not? And what's nice is agents, they want to do well, right? We don't always give them the tools to be able to self-manage, but if you do, you'll see that there'll be this friendly competition that kind of stems if they know where they stand. And that's where you get this real-time kind of boost in performance that happens very quickly. You also typically see in performance management solutions, you'll see some sort of real-time messaging integrated, so where managers can either send messages, to everyone at once, if it's like a bulletin where they have to kind of accept that message, and you get a little report of the messages that have been accepted and who hasn't read them, or it may be triggered based off of any of these metrics. And then for those metrics that necessarily don't need to be shown in real time, typically there's some sort of scorecard that agents can see and click on and see how they're doing daily, weekly, monthly, versus their target and versus their group. So once you define the metrics, then you have to kind of decide, all right, well, how do we want to present them? And there's a lot of ways you can present the metrics within tickers, and nowadays it's pretty customizable, pretty easy to do. So then supervisors, again, like agents, supervisors don't need to see every metric in real time. Some of the real-time metrics that we recommend displaying, and you may already be doing this kind of at a supervisory level or group level. Sometimes we see this a lot within wallboards and flat screen displays and things of that nature. But number of calls in queue, longest calls in queue, service level, ASD, number of customer complaints, things like that. And then some of the metrics that you don't necessarily want to dive in real time, but you want to have access to are things like first contact resolution, CSAT scores, net promoter scores. Again, CSAT scores you don't necessarily need to know in real time, but things like customer complaints or outliers within those surveys, if you are doing post-call surveys, are really great to get notified on in real time. You'll see that in one of the case studies I present. So then once you've determined kind of the metrics that you're interested in measuring that make sense for your organization, for each line of business, then you have to determine the data sources, right? And again, a lot of the data lies in kind of different silos, if you will. So typically you'll see, the ACD dialer. If you have an IVR, there'll be some data there that you might be interested in capturing to get kind of the entire customer experience. If you support email and chat, which many organizations are now doing an increasing amount of, so you have kind of the communications, data sources, and if you're lucky, all those are in one data source, and if you're not, they're in different data sources. And whether you're an Avaya customer, a Cisco customer, a Siemens, whatever platform you're using, what's nice is that the performance management systems typically have out-of-the-box connectors to those systems where they can easily pull the real-time data into a single data mart, if you will. And then you have kind of the customer-facing applications and some of the internal applications, such as your CRM or ERP. It might be Salesforce or right now or Oracle, or SAP. There's a lot of pretty commonly used one, and you may even have internal applications. So help desk applications like Remedy and so forth, and then the QA applications, a lot of different ones of those, and then workforce management to get things like adherence, right, and utilization, things like that, and any other types of data sources. So what's nice, again, is performance management. Essentially what you want to do is it'll consolidate data from multiple systems and sites and essentially make that operational. That's a lot of the challenge within reporting nowadays is taking all that information and quickly making it operational or actionable, like Paul said. That's the real challenge we have today with spreadsheets. They're just too slow typically to do that. So once you've determined your metrics and you go through and you kind of determine what data sources do we need. And we have a lot of customers that just start at the top half up here. They just say, all right, we're going to focus on driving some improvements within handle times, transfers, holds, things like that we really just want to improve. And they'll start first with a simple performance management solution that just pulls, for them it's a big step, right? They'll pull real-time information from the ACD, and they'll deliver that information in real time to the agents, and they see very dramatic results as well. So that's typically a great place to start. And some people want to do it all at once, right? So they'll say, all right, we're going to implement this project. We want to make sure we're able to fund it. So they'll do data connected to their CRM system as well to get some of the sales data or customer data, maybe to the workforce management system so they can schedule coaching at the right time, things like that. So it all depends on your situation, but you can start simple with just a connector to your ACD or dialer, see how that works, how your agents respond to that, and you can always add more data sources as you go. So then another thing that's really important, and you may be already doing this with your current systems, but if you're not, I want to kind of illustrate this. So I'll take a metric here that's pretty commonly measured, right? Service level, how many calls were answered within X seconds or less. And in this case, let's say we have a goal of 80%, right, as a service level. So if we look at our average here, we'll see that 82% is the average. So if we look at averages across days, we look pretty good here, right? So we look great. We're at 82%. We beat our goals. But if you actually analyze the data a little closer, when you look at just even on an hourly interval level, and it's important to do this with all metrics, not just service level, but look at on an interval level, how am I doing here really, right? And you kind of look through which intervals did I really meet. Well, if you set a range of, all right, 75 to 80% is my range goal, if you look at the green ones, there's really only 5 intervals that we actually met service level here, right? So that we're within 75% and 85%. The rest of the day, we're either, understaffed or overstaffed, right? So in the morning, we're overstaffed, and then we're very understaffed between 2 and 4 o'clock. So kind of map this out below just to show you what it looks like, but there's a huge fluctuation in the experience that your customer is when they call in or email or website with you. There's a huge fluctuation in what they're experiencing. And what we found is most important to the customer is actually more of a consistent service level is even more important than having really high service levels. So it's the consistency that's key. If they're expecting to wait a certain amount of time all the time and you keep that consistent, then you're doing well. So you definitely want to look at service level. A lot of the performance management systems will even allow you to go down to like 15-minute intervals, maybe 30-minute intervals, and so you can really dissect the data and do this on more than just service level to see how you're doing throughout the day. And then this is some recent research that was performed by Quality Assurance and Training Connection, and what it illustrates is that a lot of us are rescheduling training, right? So, and it's common, right? The queues build up, something happens, we got to, kind of reschedule training. But it just keeps getting rescheduled and rescheduled and rescheduled. And one of the nice things about some of the performance management tools is they actually have e-learning integrated, right? So it just will deliver e-learning at the appropriate time. So it talks to workforce management, and workforce management says, all right, now's a good time to take these 15 agents off and allow them to spend 10 minutes in e-learning on self-paced learning. And so a lot of the most successful case studies or customers that I'm working with, they start off with just, showing metrics in real time to the agents and supervisors and managers, and then they integrate this kind of e-learning, which kind of intelligently looks for good times to actually send the coaching. And not only does it do that, it looks at the performance metrics to know which coaching should be delivered to what agent. So it's more of a personalized coaching, and agents love e-learning because it's self-paced. They can go through it at their own pace. Some whiz through these courses. And coaching is just quick reminders typically. It's like either a PDF, one-page PDF with one question at the end, or just a reminder message, or a little video, or example best practice call. Those things tend to work really well. We all, as humans, we need to be reminded at least 7 times typically of things before it really sinks in. So just having this kind of constant coaching, just reminding you of things to do really tends to work well, and it actually fosters a great environment of increased agent satisfaction, because agents appreciate the feedback. They like feedback, and when they can get, productive, constructive feedback and coaching and learning, it tends to work really well. A lot of you already have learning management systems, so you may already have a lot of great content, right, that you're using. You even have an e-learning kind of that you use for introductory training when you're onboarding people, or you may do some e-learning kind of WebEx courses and things like that. But what's nice about performance management is you kind of plug those tools in, and it'll deliver it to the agents that need it. So you don't have to take everyone off the phone to do training if some of those agents already know those skills. Now I'd like to share a case study by 1-800-Flowers just to show you a little bit about how they implemented their tool and some of the benefits that they achieved. So they've been in business for over 30 years, and very successful company. You probably order flowers or something of that sort, whether it be flowers, chocolate, now there's gardening supplies, popcorn, they support a range of brands now and products. And they're pretty complex. Actually, when they started with them, they were primarily brick and mortar facilities, and they used to share time with outsourcers to help out during peak periods. And since then, they've actually transitioned all of their agents, or the majority of them, home. So they have close to 900 at-home agents now that are using kind of this real-time self-management tools, if you will. And they have, as you can see, their data sources are pretty they have a wide variety of data sources, from email management systems, knowledge management, workforce management. Just put some of these here so you can kind of see the complexity. But what they're faced with is a lot of peak periods, right? So there's certain times when they really need everyone to be on it, and when they needed help, whether it be through an outsourcer or whether it be internally, when they had to ramp up and hire, they needed to quickly get agents on board, get them up to speed, and allow them to kind of self-manage, if you will. So you have the winter holiday season, which is coming up pretty soon, which is a pretty big peak for them. But when they get into Valentine's and Mother's Day, you can see the peaks are just huge. So obviously we all like to give our significant others and our mothers something there. So they would use these tools to quickly get agents ramped up and allow them to kind of self-manage. So their objectives, before they had real-time performance management, they want to increase the productivity of not only their managers but their agents. They wanted to set performance goals and then monitor. They call it performance compliance. So are they, not the typical compliance, but are they complying with their performance goals, if you will? And they wanted to improve the information flow. So a lot of what they were doing was very manual. It's common. So, but they wanted to try to get the right information to the right people. And then right up front, they knew they wanted to invest in kind of these knowledge transfer tools, more of an e-learning system versus they were pretty paper-based and classroom-based. So here's an example of their scorecards, and scorecards typically show the key metrics that they measure. So you can see they measure conversion percentage, auto-in percentage, handle time, average sale, average credit. Credits is something that they monitor pretty closely to see how many credits agents are giving out, maybe unnecessarily. Points per hour is one of their internal metrics. So again, the ability to create your own metrics based off of data from the various systems, and then transactions per hour. And what's nice is they actually built some real-time alerts and messages to agents and managers around some of these metrics. And for example, I'll go to the third bullet here, average sales. So if the average sale is less than $52 and they've taken at least 10 calls, then the supervisor gets notified. And then you can just monitor that and see if there's something going on there that needs to be addressed. Customer satisfaction scores is another one that they monitor very closely. So In sales, if it's less than 8 or service less than 7, there's a real-time notification that does get sent out to the supervisor, again, to take action if necessary. And they can call the customer back and try to save that customer or offer them something to kind of build their loyalty, if you will. Here's an example of a consolidated performance report. So this is more of a kind of manager level report, but as you can see, they have a lot of different metrics that they measure, availability, orders taken, average sale, and these metrics come from a variety of systems, and you can easily kind of see how agents are performing, different groups are performing in teams, even different centers, and drill down to actually the root cause of what's causing those issues as well. Here's what their real-time agent scorecards look like. I've kind of stretched them to make it a little bit vertically wider than they are. They're actually very thin, and they're always on. They're just docked above the existing application, and they show, depending on what department they're in, they will show different metrics related to what their goals are. They also rotate. So this one's rotating a little faster than they typically do, but I just wanted to show you, illustrate that they actually can click on their personalized training within the ticker, and then any kind of message, if the container is not damaged, remember to replace it, that can be shown as well, if that's something they're not doing, or if it's a bulletin you want to send out. And management has their own tickers as well, so they can see how their team 53 is doing versus the center and so forth. And these are customizable. And another thing that's neat at 1-800-Flowers is they actually customize it to where, depending on what type of brand they're selling, so if it's Popcorn Factory versus Plow and Hearth versus the actual 1-800-Flowers brand, they would actually get different tickers with different metrics on how they're doing selling on that actual brand, selling and servicing that brand. And here's one of their coaching report cards. So as the agents are taking their e-learning throughout the week, they actually, managers and supervisors, get a report of who actually took the coaching course, how long it took them. They can even drill down on each agent to see how long it took them to answer each question, and did they get that question right or wrong. But they could see very quickly who passed and who failed, number of redos, things of that nature, to get an accurate, not only a view into how things are going now, but how coaching is actually affecting performance, down the road. Is the coaching actually working to drive performance behavior improvement? Some of the results that they achieved, and this is within 6 months of the implementation, when we measured 5 additional sales per agent per day, 3% increase in sales conversions. They were able to significantly decrease the number of FTE, full-time employees, and they streamlined their reporting across all sites and agents. So the paper-based reporting, the cell-based reporting went away, so they're able to basically log into the web browser and access all the reports that they needed. And the agents were happy. They get a lot more feedback. They were delivering, they saw a significant increase in customer satisfaction as well. The next case study, kind of shifting industries from retail to financial services here, I want to talk to you a little bit about PNC and what they've done with real-time performance management. They've been using it for several years now, started in their collections department and kind of are growing throughout different various departments using real-time performance management. Just a little bit about PNC before we get started here. They're one of the largest banks, number 165 on Fortune 500. They're ranked 5th in for employee training in Training Magazine, and very innovative. I mean, they're always on kind of the cusp of innovation. If you look at some of their CIO technology awards and so far, they have a blended inbound and outbound environment, like several financial services organizations do as well. some of the key issues that they faced were, one was managers were lacking visibility into their business metrics because of the siloed data. Everything was in different systems, if you will. So they typically didn't get that information till end of day. In some systems, they didn't even get it till end of week. And what this causes kind of operational inefficiencies and kind of low productivity. They spend a lot of time actually trying to dig through the numbers, dig through the data to report versus spending time on the floor coaching and managing their team. Agents had little to no accountability, right? Because they had really no visibility, or if they did, sometimes it was even end of month visibility into their performance metrics. Again, the productivity wasn't as high as they would have liked. And they had a tough time, like many of us, just committing to that ongoing training, right? A lot of times it was getting canceled, trying to get agents into the classroom for ongoing training. They did great for onboarding and getting new agents on the floor, but is that ongoing training where, especially in financial service environments, there's a lot of new kind of policies, procedures, regulations, new products and services that are always coming out. So to train agents on that was very difficult using the traditional kind of bring agents into a classroom model. And we see that with a lot of our customers, and especially the ones that have at-home agents. There's really no easy way to bring them all into the center. Even if you're in a hub and spoke model, to do that ongoing training is difficult. If you're in a fully dispersed at-home agent model, we have agents throughout the country or world, then there's really no other way other than kind of an e-learning to actually train them effectively. So their business objectives is they wanted to get more productivity and efficiency out of their employees. They really wanted to identify underperformers earlier. So what was happening a lot of times is agents, would just continue to do their job, and they weren't really able to identify them until a week later or so. And by then the campaign may have been over. So it wasn't just identifying underperforming agents, but also campaigns as well. So that was kind of a big thing as they were rolling out new campaigns and products and services. They wanted agents to self-monitor performance. In terms of cost reduction, obviously that's still top of mind for many of us is always how can we effectively reduce costs while increasing our performance and customer service. And then, manager productivity and operational agility was huge to be able to make decisions in real time and make it kind of non-disruptive from an IT standpoint. So, IT's got a lot of projects going on. They didn't really want to bog down their IT department too much with any new type of project. So that was one of their goals. So what they implemented is ticker scorecards, several different consolidated reports, to pull data from their payment systems, their collection systems, their outbound dialers. Now they've been using it in their help desk, and they have wallboards in there. And essentially what a wallboard is just a group-level scorecard. So it's not agent-level, but it's a group-level scorecard where you drag and drop the metrics that you want to see on a group level, and you want everyone within that center to see. And also e-learning as well. So e-learning is a big piece of what they do. Again, you don't need to add e-learning right from the get-go, but it's one where you really start getting kind of that 360-degree feedback loop. It's the define, measure, analyze, improve. This is kind of the improve phase, if you will, where you're taking it full circle when you add the e-learning to the solution. And some of the results they achieved are 16% decrease in outbound talk time, 12% increase in blended calls per hour. They significantly increased the dollars collected. Their agent engagement, when they did an agent satisfaction survey, was much higher in terms of increased retention, morale. They were able to better track and control the agent education. So as they're delivering training, they can see what was working, who has taken the most courses, and so forth. And then customer experience, in terms of abandon rates improved, average speed of answer. And they actually achieved the payback period within 60 days. One in our flower did as well. It's pretty common with this type of solution. It's typically not that expensive of a solution, and just putting real-time metrics in front of agents and supervisors, it's just phenomenal to see what really happens. It's actually one of my favorite solutions out of all the solutions we offer because of the payback, and to see what it does within an organization is pretty dramatic. So. At this point, that's what I had, and I really appreciate your time, and I know Paul and Sherry, we appreciate your time today. I wanted to give you a link to the report that Paul wrote, and I think you'll find it very valuable. Again, it has a lot more information. From good to great, rapid results with real-time performance management. It's available along with several other resources in our resource center at www.vpi-corp.com/resource center. And at this point, I think it makes sense to turn it over. I see a lot of great questions, and look forward to the opportunity to answer those questions and work with you on any of the challenges you may be having in your centers.
Thank you, Patrick. We only have a few minutes for questions, so I think we can take 2 or 3, so let's get right to it. Any recommendations on how to effectively balance showing agents' call quality metrics against productivity-driven metrics? Or said another way, how do you ensure that by showing productivity metrics you don't negatively impact call quality?
I could take that one. So essentially what you do is that's where the balance scorecard comes in, right? So balancing them, and if they know exactly what weighting is on each metrics, right? So you're going to have some productivity metrics. Typically, you're going to have some adherence metrics, which are kind of like productivity, and then you're going to have your quality metrics, your customer satisfaction metrics. If they know how they're weighted, they're going to not cannibalize one of those metrics, if you will. So it's important that you kind of let them know up front exactly this is what we're looking from you. These are all important. And again, it's important when you're implementing a real-time performance management solution not to focus too much on the actual metrics, right? I see some other questions around, we want to make sure that we're not managing to the numbers the whole time. Really, the goal of real-time performance management is so that everything's visible, right? So there's no industry or environment where we measure people so closely already, but what we're doing is just extending that to give them visibility in real time. So the goal really is to allow supervisors to spend more time actually coaching on the floor, because agents can kind of self-manage themselves. So agents actually tend to get a lot more coaching in this type of environment because they always know where they're at. They're not kind of focusing on the metrics, or like sometimes if you do quality assurance at the end of the month, right, everyone's monitoring at the end of the month, and then we do the coaching, right, and a lot of times you present that metric and there's like a sticker shock and they don't listen to half the things you say. Well, they already know how they did on all their quality assurance evaluations. They can actually listen to those calls ahead of time before the quality evaluation, and actually, typically they tend to score themselves harder than the actual supervisors. So there's a lot of value in just allowing them to kind of know where they're at ahead of time. When you get into the actual coaching sessions, the coaching sessions tend to be more productive and more focused on behaviors and less on the actual metrics, because they already know where they stand on metrics.
Okay, thank you. Paul, other than financial services and retail, do you see are very well suited to real-time performance management?
That's a good question, and it brings me back to a slide that several of you alert attendees pointed out that we had the responses back where there's a question regarding the value of real-time performance management. We had 93% of respondents said yes, we absolutely see value in things get twisted around, so I apologize for that. The answer to that, or the correct notation on that slide should be 93% responded in the affirmative. And when we did some crosstabs on that 93%, we found that over half of the respondents were represented by 3 vertical markets: retail, healthcare, and wired and wireless telecommunications. So that was over half. There was about another 8 vertical markets. And again, I'd like to refer you to the paper that's on your screen now, the link to the paper that's on the screen now, where all of that data is detailed for you, and that is available at no cost from BPI.
And with your experience with financial services organizations, what do you find is a typical implementation time to put a solution in place?
Yeah, I mean, based on what we've seen and what we've done in terms of implementation, the solutions are not that difficult to implement. Most of performance management solutions have out-of-the-box data collectors. You may have a couple homegrown systems that need to be connected to. They're software-based. It's not a very services-heavy engagement. Where the services come in is more defining what metrics do you want to show to your managers, to your agents and supervisors within your tickers and within the scorecard. That's really where most of the time comes, but that can typically be done simultaneously while the data connectors and the data is being consolidated. So within, I would say 30 to 90 days is typical. 30 being if you're connecting to one or two data systems, be it your ACD, your dialer, and maybe one CRM system or one of your financial services systems. As you add more data sources, a little bit more time, but you can already get rolling just by implementing a connector to your ACD, for example. You're going to see some pretty much out of the box and really some behavior changes, and then you can always add more things as you go.
Okay, we have time for one last question, and let's just take one. Answer it in a minute or less. We have a high outbound sales culture in our contact center, and have leaders that are very new to call center management. They never had experience. How do we keep them engaged in real-time management without call management desk babysitting them all the time? I don't know, Paul or Patrick.
I can answer that one. So this is pretty common. In fact, outbound sales collections is one of the killer apps for real-time performance management. It's really numbers-driven and very competitive. So agents, by knowing where they stand in real time, they will go. They will collect more. They will sell more. It is just unbelievable. And then from a supervisory standpoint, so management that's kind of new, if you will, they know how they stand versus their teams. And what it does is it kind of gives them points of where they need improvement. So they're going to be able to easily identify underperformers quickly. So if, they're trained properly on how to coach, I think a lot of times our supervisors sometimes are the best agents and they're not necessarily trained as coaches. But if we can train our supervisors on, once we identify poor performance early, like pretty much in real time, how do we actually coach to behaviors? So I think spending some time on how to coach and just using the real-time performance management more as indicators on who needs some help, and then focusing more of our time on getting them to actually coach towards the behaviors. And what's nice is real-time performance management will actually allow you to identify the best behaviors as well very quickly. So a great example is look at what the best collections agents or sales agents are doing in your outbound environment. Actually use them to mentor other agents, and also use some of their best practice calls, find out what they're doing really well to train the other agents on. So by quickly identifying poor performers and really good performers, if you leverage the skills of the best performers and those best practices, you can train the others on how to sell more as well.
Thank you, Patrick and Paul, and that's really all that we have time for any questions we did not get to. We will forward those on, and Paul and Patrick will get back to you. Just keep in mind, if you'd like a copy of the slides for this session or any other session and the recordings, you can find them at ecrmevents.com. Log in, hit Agenda, the tab at the top, page down, you'll see all of the webcasts, you'll see the PDFs and the recordings come up about 24 hours after the live event. So thank you so much to VPI and Saddletree for presenting this very informative webinar. We have another webcast coming up in about a half an hour, Top 5 Workforce Management Trends. So after you have some time in the exhibit hall, you want to jump on that session as well. At this point, we will be ending this webcast, and we hope to see you back in half an hour. Thank you all. Take care. Bye.
Thanks so much.